Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Makar Ultralight Titanium Driver, which is literally a screwdriver. That's right, I'm going to do a review of a high-end ultralight titanium screwdriver. We're going to lead into this, see how it goes. But first off, before I go any further, I want to thank Polish Custom Knives for sending this guy along. They reached out to me and said, hey Nick, we've got these screwdrivers here. Would you be interested in checking one of them out? I took a look at the drivers, took a look at the price, and said, wait, really? Are you sure? They said, yeah, we just want an honest review, curious what you make of them. And so they sent it along. But I told them, as always, I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly. It might be a gem, it might be junk. They did still send it along. We do have to assume this is going to be the very best quality-controlled screwdriver ever. And that I'm doing my best not to let that affect the nature or the quality of my review, although you're going to see the review's a little bit different than normal as a result. So there is that size comparison. As always, here it is against the Spyderco Delica. And so what we see here is this is a relatively compact screwdriver, and then actually I'll put it up against a more relevant size comparison for the screwdriving world. Here it is against the iFixit bit kit, the iFixit basic aluminum screwdriver that I use on a pretty regular basis, and then actually I'll go ahead and compare against the base model WEHA screwdriver holding bit thing. I suppose screwdriver is the proper term for that. So what we see here is that this is about the size. It's a little bit shorter than both, but it's a little bit closer to the original WEHA sort of system approach. And then one thing that is worth noting is that this guy is using full-size bits rather than the micro bits that you're very often going to see me use on the channel here. And so that is a little bit different, although it is still using the WEHA brand. Next thing, what the heck is this? Oh, and then I should actually, measure the thing. That might be helpful for people who want to do that. What we're seeing here is that with a bit, this is coming in right around 4 inches, a little over 10 centimeters. Without a bit, we're coming in just under 3.5 inches here. And then the overall thickness of the top bit here looks to be about 2 centimeters. And so, yeah, that's our that is our size of this little guy here. Next thing, who is the maker of this? Well, this is a person I'd not heard of prior to doing this review. This is Makar, I believe. He does knives and tools and whatnot. And he's being his main dealer, I think maybe his only dealer, is Polish Custom Knives. Next thing, this is going to be two different things, because this is going to be a review of a screwdriver, 100%, but it's also going to be a greater discussion of the nature of art, tools, and sort of the interaction of the two, because one very important fact about this screwdriver, and please keep an open mind, let's hold off, we'll talk about this, is that this is $813. Yeah, I know. The sticker shock hit me pretty hard, too. That is an absolutely wild number. And I want to talk a little bit more about what that means, whether that's worth doing, whether that could possibly, conceivably be worth doing in the conclusion. But first off, I want to talk about the good and the not so good about this little guy, and then we'll go there. So on the good side, to start with, this guy does come with a selection of bits. It comes actually with this little gold guy installed. And I gotta say, this is the most attractive it ever looks, right? This looks damn nice, right? With that little gold bit in there. But the thing is, for a knife person like myself, generally you're going to be using T8, T10, etc. And then a more conventional set of Phillips head screws on there. No flathead, but whatever. You can get these. These are just standard bits that you can get in any kind of a kit. And so it does come with a selection of those. And these are WEHA bits. And WEHA is my personal choice of bit maker. I feel like they do a very good job of balancing out, nice quality, etc. So at least they went with what is, in my opinion, if not the best, pretty damn close to it. So that's good. Next thing, the one thing that's worth noting here is that the bit holder in here is actually, there's a little magnet, basically, that you can see pressed into there. What that means is that this guy absolutely holds on to these bits quite effectively, right? I can, really flick it if I want, and the bit is not really going anywhere, although they are relatively easy to extract when I need to, and there is no play at all. I can, twist this back and forth, and really there is no movement of that bit in there. It has been very nicely milled to accommodate those bits, as one would very much hope, but still, so the bit retention is good, it is magnetic, and it 100% is not moving around inside of there, which is nice. Next thing, this has a lot of grip to it. What we see here is that this guy has a whole bunch of holes drilled in it, right? And although each one of these holes is chamfered, it's actually very nicely finished. This does result in a great deal of gription at any given point along the barrel here. I'll kind of show you this a little bit more carefully. Yeah, at any given point here, you have some element of texture that you can grab onto. The only place where those holes don't go through is actually this area right here where the magnet sits. The top part here, you're actually still seeing the bit. And so that's kind of a neat thing, right? And you can actually, if you wanted to, you can pass a bar through the handle here, and that will help you add a little bit of torque here. Let me zoom out a little bit here. Whoops. What we can do here is you can actually push a bar straight through, and that'll let you get a little bit more torque going if you find yourself in need of additional torque and not wanting to use a different driver. Although, I'm going to be honest with you, if I'm really needing to put some torque on things, I might use something a little bit bigger, or even, generally speaking, the sort of ratcheting style I find is very easy to put high amounts of torque onto, right? So anyways, but you do have that option out there, which is actually a nice thing. Next thing, this is amazingly lightweight. What I mean by that is, well, look at the thing. It's made of titanium, and with a bit in here, we are seeing this guy comes in under an ounce, right? And, you know, to be fair, it's not like, oh my God, this is heavy, but it is very, very lightweight. And for being a solid chunk of titanium and still looking this nice, yeah, that's pretty cool, right? And I gotta say, it is just very nicely done in terms of that skeletonization, basically. You can tell here that the maker has done everything in his power to remove weight where he can. He's drilled out damn near everything. In fact, you can even see, I don't know if you can see this, but here, I'll get a flashlight here. You can even see that it goes solidly, as I throw the flashlight across the room. Damn, I'm good. Luckily, I've got an expensive screwdriver to fix my existence. Anyways, if you see here, it goes all the way through down to the bottom there. So there is the holes everywhere. This is a hollow tube made of the titanium lattice right there, which is kind of cool. Next thing, this guy has a bearing mounted up in this back area here, and what that means is this guy spins like crazy, and it is very, very impressive, the amount of, well, frictionlessness that you get on this. And by the way, it's also kind of cool that it becomes transparent because you've got those holes on the outside there, and so because they're constantly moving, you can see right through the titanium in that area. This is a very, very, very nice bearing. Does this matter in any way, shape, or form? No, absolutely not. But it is very, very cool, right? You can get this going and keep it going for a long time, which makes this a very fidget-friendly sort of screwdriver. It's a ridiculous sentence that I've just uttered there, but it is one for sure. And so I appreciate that very much. It's one of those little things that if you're going to sell a screwdriver for $800, you absolutely should be going that extra mile. And that feels like a very weird extra mile. Next thing, the design on this guy is nice. It is a very basic screwdriver at some level, right? Because it works well. You can use, in my case, my ring finger here is seated on this little collar, and then I can use my index and middle fingers here. And if I am screwing into something, I can just kind of do one of these guys here, and that works. And because it's very easily free spinning, I still have good purchase on it. It's a nice design, and it works very well. And so, you know, just as a functional object, you know what, it works quite well. And you actually have a fair amount of gription on there, as I mentioned already. Then finally, it is beautifully made, right? This is, I feel like, a very, very nice sculpture. If we zoom in a little bit here, what we see is that, yeah, this is profoundly cool, right? You've got these different offset patterns here. You've got a lot of little chamfers. You've got nice milling overall. You've got very nice lathe work. The surface finishes are really nice. All of the individual cuts look good. This is a beautiful object, right? I am a big, big fan of this. I don't know whether it's worth $800, but honestly, in terms of what is done on the device here, there's nothing I can point to that feels like, oh man, they screwed that up, they should have done that better, etc. It is just, it's beautifully made. And so to me, that is the good, is that it is beautifully made with a nice design, an absurdly smooth rotation of that bearing on the top there. It is amazingly light with lots of grip, a magnetic bit holder, and it does come with a small selection of Weehaw bits, as well as coming in a little plastic sort of case, although it's just sort of a generic knife case kind of thing. On the bad side, lightweight can be a little less desirable in some contexts, right? If you are, for instance, screwing into something and you're wanting to quickly remove a screw that is no longer really biting, you want to be able to spin it and let it spin for a little while. The fact that this is lightweight means there's less inertia, so it won't have quite as much force when you flick it that way, right? That is one of the advantages of a much bigger, thicker kind of screwdriver out there in the world, and so that is a downside of lightweight. It is also not the most comfortable thing ever for putting down a lot of torque, because you are grabbing against this sort of honeycomb pattern here. As I said, I'm not necessarily sure this is the tool I would reach for if I'm really trying to put a lot of gronk on something. But at the same time, if you're really biting into this, it can definitely, you feel it a little bit in the fingers there. Next thing, I'd like to see a nicer case for the bits, right? This ships with sort of the default Weehaw bit holder sort of an affair, but honestly, for this kind of a price point, I feel like they could have done that a little bit better. There could have been a separate piece for that, or maybe a stand with a little bit of a bit, bit holder around it, or something like that. This is, obviously, this is a nice object, but I feel like they could have done some accessories that would have really dialed it up a notch. You know, a little holder that, holds the driver, and then a couple of bits next to it would have been a very, very nice touch. And I feel like this is a price point that a lot of people are going to struggle with, and it would be really nice if they could dial up what you're getting a little bit for that price point. Throw in those extras, and I think that would make it a little easier to feel like it's been earned. And then that brings us to the last point in the bad, which is that the price on this guy is borderline absurd. This is $813 for a screwdriver. That's a lot, and in fact, there's a lot to unpack here, so I'm actually going to leave further discussion of that for the conclusion. But, so to me, at least, all of that is the bad, is that the price here is very, 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 very high. I'd like to see a nicer case for the bits, maybe a stand for the driver at this kind of a price point. I'm not super-duper comfortable putting a lot of torque down with this guy because, well, it's not the nicest in the hand if you are really gripping hard. And then the lightweightness of it can actually be undesirable in certain contexts. Final conclusion. Look, at some level, this is a nice object. It's got Weehaw bits, good retention, lots of grip, super lightweight, smooth bearings, a nice design, an absolutely beautiful construction with just... yeah, it is a very nice thing. Yet it is also so lightweight as to be a little less rotatable for high speeds if you are trying to pull out a screw there. It's not super comfy for putting down torque. I'd like to see a little more in the way of accessories, and this remains an $813 screwdriver. Now, thing is, already, comments are full of people who got 30 seconds into the video and felt the compulsion to post, "Hard pass! No screwdriver on earth is worth $813. They're probably calling me an idiot right now and insulting the honor of anybody who could even contemplate that. And no doubt they're feeling quite wise and insightful for seeing the truth. And you know what? At some level, they're right? As a tool, this is dumb. It works quite well. Right? It is an absolutely fine little screwdriver, but at the same time, there is no denying that you could buy a very impressive screwdriver and a lifetime supply of Weehaw bits for the price of one of these guys. And frankly, you could get an enviable selection of power tools for the price of one of these. Although it is quite nice, functionally speaking, this doesn't have a huge advantage over any other screwdriver, over the ones that I use on a regular basis, right? This is not nearly as nice, but it is just as effective, right? And so that is definitely a thing. An angry commenter, yes, you are right. This is dumb. But here's the rub. This is no more or less dumb than some of the other pricey gear that I show off on the channel. So, for instance, this right here is the Herman Knives Sting. But more specifically, this is a full dress version of it with a Damacor blade with full Damasteel backspaces. This is 100% an absolutely amazing knife. I am a huge, huge fan of this. But the thing is, this is a $2,500 pocket knife at retail price, and you could get 100 utility knives and 10 lifetime supplies of blades for this, right? You could replace this in my carry with, frankly, you could get 10 knives that are absolutely excellent and still last a lifetime, right? And you could replace this thing in my carry with a Rat 2, and you know what? I would get along fine, functionally speaking. It is quite nice. It is a wonderful pocket knife, in fact, and I really like this piece, but functionally speaking, I'm not sure that it is 62 times better than this guy in terms of price. And so the same argument, of course, could be made for even a $200 knife, right? There are a lot of people who think that's too much to pay. But the thing is, it's a little bit different. And here's another example. This right here is the Omega Seamaster Professional. This has a $5,200 retail price. That's absurd. That's frankly insane. And this guy right here is a Casio F108. This has a retail price of maybe $10 to $15, depending on where you want to look. The fact of the matter is, the Casio here is more accurate. It's more durable, being quartz rather than a beautiful spinning gears mechanical movement down there in the bottom. It is going to have a much lower lifetime cost of ownership. Frankly, servicing this guy every 7 to 10 years is going to be the cost of like 10 of these. being very conservative there. And again, I could get a lifetime supply of these, such that I threw one away every morning, and you're still, well, okay, maybe not that much, but still, I hope my lifetime's longer than that. And still, look, this is a lot of watch here for very little money, and this is not that much more watch, it's just very different. So in the same way that the Omega is a little bit dumb and the Sting is a little bit dumb, I would argue that this shows us something important about the world. You can buy tools, right? You can buy a pocket knife. You can buy a wristwatch. You can buy a screwdriver. You can buy a pen. You can buy a car. You can buy a computer, whatever. You can buy a tool, and you can buy art. You can buy a painting. You can buy a sculpture. You could buy an NFT for some reason. Or you can do the middle. You can buy a tool, which is also art. And that's what I would argue is going on in these cases, right? Is this the most effective daily wristwatch? No, absolutely not. Is this the most effective daily knife? It's a damn effective knife, but no, absolutely not. You bring cost into it? No, this is ridiculous. And is this the best screwdriver in the world? No, absolutely not. However, at the same time, these are very much art. I would argue that. Some people are going to disagree. Some people don't feel like these are valid categories for art, but I believe that they are. And when you buy art, then the idea of value kind of goes out the window to start with, because you're paying for mastery, right? The reason I pay money for this is because Herman Knives is able to do amazing things. He's able to take this material, make it look good, make this material look good. He's able to machine it beautifully. Omega is able to make spinning tiny gears about as accurate as an average quartz watch on the wrist, which is amazing, right? Is it smart? No, but it's amazing. You are buying mastery. You are supporting a maker who is doing crazy things, right? Buying this, I'm supporting Herman and doing the next crazy thing. Buying this, you're supporting Makar and doing the next crazy thing, right? So I would argue that these are not really about value anymore. They're about art. And so this screwdriver, kind of wrapping it around again, this screwdriver is a tool, 100%. And you know what? It's a fine tool. But the thing is, it is also a sculpture. And I think that's the area where this is going to make some sense potentially to one or two people out there in the world, right? It is a luxury object. It is an artistic statement in the same sense that this is. And it's patently absurd if you're looking at this as like, oh, well, I need a screwdriver. Should I go down to Home Depot or should I pick up one of these guys? No, absolutely not. But it's important, I think, to remember, and I think a lot of angry commenters might not necessarily be viewing screwdrivers as an area for art, even if they do view pocket knives or watches as a possibility. It's important to remember that the Makar here, the Omega, and the Herman are not fundamentally different. From tool perspectives, all three of them are patently ridiculous, and I'm a little crazy, more than a little crazy, to enjoy or purchase any one of these, right? The Makar is not more insane than the Omega or the Herman. It's just different. It's in a different field. And so if you are a person who feels that all three of these objects are ridiculous, then you know what? I gotta be real with you. I kind of envy you, right? Congratulations. Your internal belief system about art and tools and their intersectionalities is internally consistent. You rock on, right? I gotta be honest. You're probably the smart one in this room. If you are a person who believes that all three of these objects are awesome and that all three of them could be viewed as being artistic, maybe not to your specific taste, then I'm so sorry for your wallet. Welcome to the Nick Shabazz channel. You're in the right place, sadly. And if you're a person, though, who would post an angry comment for this or for this, but be lusting over this or for this maybe, then I encourage you to ask yourself, why does one of these things feel okay and others of them not? Right? Why should one of these be good as art and one of these be bad? And I encourage you to consider that most people, every person, I would probably argue, has areas where they appreciate art and areas where they don't. Everybody has areas where they might like a tool that is nicer than most, and others have areas where they don't, right? I am not a person who is into big fancy cars, right? That's not an area of tools which I really feel like I need to dive deep into. I am a person who is into fancy knives. I am a person who is into fancy watches. And so for me, I'm willing to spend more in this area for art, but, spending more for a really high-end car doesn't really do it for me. I don't get it. And in the same way, I think think myself and a lot of other people might not necessarily get this as being art, but that's because that's not an area that they want to do. And so maybe out there in the world there is somebody who is a screwdriver art collector and for whom this is absolutely perfect. But maybe that's not you, and that's okay. So anyways, I encourage you to just kind of remember that sometimes we are out there and we are buying a tool. We are buying a piece of, basically an object that helps us do a task, whether it's knowing the time, whether it's disassembling something, or cutting open a box, right? Sometimes we buy tools. Sometimes we buy art that is just art for the sake of art, and sometimes we do both at the same time, right? I think the important thing is being very clear about which one is which for you. Final conclusion on the screwdriver, though. This is absolutely a fine screwdriver, and it is an absolutely excellent sculpture, and frankly, it's a great excuse for a philosophical video. But it is not $800 better as a functional tool than your average driver, right? I am not looking at this and going, oh man, am I glad I put that extra $789 or so into this. No, absolutely not. The only way that this will make any sense for you is if you do see screwdrivers as a potential realm for art, as a potential realm for sculpture. If you appreciate Makar's specific work as an artist and doing this as some of the other things you're going to do, and if you're willing to pay accordingly. If so, you're probably going to love it. But if not, absolutely, I don't see this guy being a great idea. So anyways, there you go. I hope this has been interesting to you, that you kind of see my overall point here, that we're all crazy. We're just crazy in different ways, and that you found this interesting, and that you don't feel like I've screwed you over using this 20 minutes of the time. Okay. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now. Hope I didn't drive you crazy with the philosophy. Okay. Bye now.